So we talked about the ball, we talked about the context. Want to move on a little bit and talk about what next. Apart from that, it will be in 4 different places today, and in the next 4 days. So the idea is that, look, in 4 days' time, the ball will leave Hong Kong. For me, I would like that. I would like this exercise to be a step in encouraging people to be more imaginative about our city, to have more demands on our public spaces, to have more demand in terms of how public art should play in our sort of city.
No, for sure. I mean, and demands is an interesting word, but yeah, I mean, I think that I was thinking about this because we talked about this a little before, and so that arc we were talking about with like social and how that shifted things, and so there's 5 days in now, I feel like Hong Kong in terms of future programming and things like that, I think there's like everything, there's a strength and there's always a flip side to that. So Hong Kong's been very lucky in ways that it's had a lot of its audience, if you think of it in the math sense, like has had a lot of big projects come through. They're very used. So there's a habit that's been built, a pattern that's been built. And so people are used to that pattern. They're used to coming out and seeing the thing or whatever. So in a way, from like a creative programming standpoint for a city, that's like great. Like we've built an audience. The audience has an expectation. The difficulty that I think comes next for Hong Kong is that, and this is part of, we developed something specifically here, is that the audience has been built with a certain expectation, but they haven't been built with the expectation of meaning. They're used to coming out and seeing, but they're not used to coming out and thinking. And so that evolution, I think, is what comes next. It's part of why, for the first time ever, we've done on the street, these videos where we're just talking to people and we're asking them what not even what they think of the work, an endorsement, just like what's their thing, and putting those, and like all of those is what's going out in the project, so that it's not us talking about it, it's not me talking about it, it's the city talking about itself. And I think that, for me, was a real goal, because I think it's so important to understand that when you're building, whatever you want to call it, in Europe that would be spectacular, but whatever it is, like you're building bigger, larger, attention-seeking projects, that they're on the way to a thing. They're on the way to an experience in your city or an experience with your friends. They're on the way to meaning about how you look at your city and the spaces in your city. When a building's going up or getting torn down, that you think about it and what that might mean, that the way the landscape shifts is also your landscape. And so I think that's always the challenge, of course, but I feel like RedBall, for me, one of the interesting is it plays in this range where it does the spectacular thing and brings people in. And my goal is always for that to be like the top of the funnel, and then we can bring them into conversations and slowly bring that through. And sometimes that's even individual. Like I was in Abu Dhabi once I did the project there, I was working with the head of communications, and there was a building I really wanted to do. It was fabulous, 50s, concrete, taxi stand, and bus stop, and it was an architect from that region, the 50s, and they were like, well, it's dirty and old, and we're going to tear it down. It's not chrome. And I'm like, it's literally a landmark. Like, we're literally staring at a landmark, and you're going to really wish it still was here in 50 years. So the project facilitated that whole conversation, because they really didn't, she particularly didn't really know what I was talking about. And so that was part of my role there, was to come in and say, this is special, this is important. And sometimes an outside eye can do that in a way that it's harder to do from the ground up. Though I'm always aware during the site visit that I come as a visitor. I don't come as an expert,